you Yanli?
Yes.
Okay, here's a notice to evict. Okay?
What?
It's your notice for... Put the knife down right now or I'm gonna put your knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down right now. Put the knife down right now.
How do I know you're an intruder?
Ma'am, drop the knife.
You have not even shown your badge.
Don't.
And you're poor guy.
Just drop the knife.
Where is the badge?
Drop the knife, please. Don't make me do this.
No, I'm not dropping.
Drop the knife now.
Hey, there is a fake police officer.
I am not a fake police officer. Drop the knife. Drop the Dark. Show me your hands. Where you at? Where you at? Sheriff Corbin. Go. Hands. Let me see your hands. Hands. Come on, hands up. Come on, your hands up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. I got stabbed.
They were serving an eviction notice. She had a large knife, and you saw part of that video. We featured it in our Crime Time segment last week. What you didn't see there is when she first closes the door, they waited 45 minutes. They were trying to get her out. Then they had a special team that went in. Joe Ested and David Katz, two of our regular guests on Crime Time, commented on the officer's actions in this case. Take a listen.
He started the normal commands being real aggressive. Then he realized he was dealing with somebody that wasn't real stable in the mind, so he started to bring his tone down, which I applaud that because we don't see that a lot. Once the assistant units arrived, because she closed the door, went back into the apartment, this is where it went bad for me. I understand you want to use least lethal force as much as you can to save a life, but this individual, this female, was posing a danger, a huge danger. She had a butcher knife. So you always want to match the threat level to what you're dealing with at the time. You're dealing with a person with a large knife. You don't want to match it with a beanbag.
And she comes out. Then the 9 people all try to hurry back out of the apartment. They fall over each other. When lethal force becomes necessary, in other words, after she stabs one officer and is leaning over the officer to continue the attack, then they open up. So the officers who are engaging her with lethal force are firing at her with their co-workers on the ground within the line of fire. Poor communication, poor tactics, and that is not how you use less than lethal force.
And what was fascinating from what Joe and David Katz, Joe Ested and David Katz told us, and they're both law enforcement, former law enforcement, is they believe, you know, the lethal force was justified, could have been used even earlier, shouldn't even tried the beanbags. Well, the woman who was shot and killed has her doctorate, and she got it at Yale. So there was a doctor, Dr. Sten Verman, the dean of the Yale School of Public Health, was giving his opinion about what happened to his former colleague. Take a listen.
It seemed reasonable to someone looking at that body cam that a response that was more mental health oriented might have been superior to one that was forceful.
A little bit of criticism for the job that law enforcement did, and it's going to be reviewed by the Citizen Board out in San Diego. But posted all this on social media. Get your reaction. Do you think the officer's actions were reasonable under those circumstances? Lee has our 13th juror comment of the day. If she hadn't stabbed a police officer, she would not have gotten shot. She made the decision not to drop the knife and comply with orders. Had she listened and done what she was told to do, she would still be alive. And she made that call, not the officer. So let's bring back in our think tank, Eklund Mercer, Nima Rahmani, Kirk Nurmi. Eklund, your thoughts about what we just saw and what took place as they were trying to just serve an eviction notice?
It's so hard to watch because number one, you have to be aware of the climate that we're in right now. Hate crimes being committed against Asian people are on an all-time high. So you have to put that into perspective. Then you can tell that she, that English isn't her first language. So at that point, the officer should have been able to, back up for a second. There was a door between the officer and that woman. There was no reason to go in that hard. There was no reason to push through. At that point, you should have asked for help with mental health because you can tell that she was having an issue. So there were so many ways to prevent this, but how they got to killing her, I can't see. Even with the knife, I mean, Japan, we have 9 people and you cannot disarm one lady with the knife. It's a problem, and that the whole precinct should have to account for. I don't care. She only had a butcher knife. You mean to tell me 9 grown men couldn't stop it? You also had a K-9 unit. You couldn't stop it? Then we need to reevaluate. We need to retrain. Somebody needs to learn martial arts because this lethal force should not be your first choice. I'm sorry.
Well, Kirk Nurmi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that, Glenn. I mean, I think we could make the argument that their role there was to serve the eviction notice, and they had done that. So going back in the apartment as they did, maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. But we can't impose perfection on every situation here. And I really have to disagree with that, Glenn, strongly, because if the police cannot respond with lethal force when they're being stabbed, when can they respond with lethal force? Nobody has to learn karate. Nobody has to do all these things. We have a person stabbing an officer. If officers are not allowed to respond with lethal force in that situation, I can't imagine any that they were.
He shouldn't have even been there to be stabbed. That's what I'm saying. At that point, hey, we have a mental health issue. Let's stop it. Let's stop. Let's go get some help. That's what I meant.
Nima, you're the closest to San Diego. Go ahead.
I used to be a prosecutor in San Diego, Vinny, and a sheriff's deputy got stabbed. It's absolutely appropriate. And why are we getting legal advice from a Yale professor when you got a Harvard law grad on the show? That was absolute nonsense. Eklund, I knew it was too good to be true. We weren't going to agree on everything. If officers can't defend themselves when they're stabbed, you want to get a dog stabbed, you want to have someone learn martial arts or MMA. I mean, this is the perfect situation. I mean, it's absolutely justified. You get stabbed, you shoot to kill.
Eklund, you said only a butcher knife. Like that's
No, here's the thing. Only
a butcher knife. You literally said that.
I do. Yes, and I did. And I said, what I'm saying is that when you have 9 people and you have one person with only a butcher knife. So you had the man had the rifle, you had the other man with everybody else had guns, everybody else were packing.
They tried shooting her with beanbags.
Beanbag. And what I'm saying is at that point, you should know that it was a psychotic issue. It's a psychotic break. To protect yourself, you should leave the scene and get psychological help. It's at least we should train officers to be able to recognize what a psychological break is. She's being evicted, but are you making it like, for her to be at Yale, for her to have such a disconnect, for her to be in a position to be evicted from her home, something went wrong. Something went terribly wrong and she's not doing well. So at that point, there should be something for when somebody's having a psychotic break. And we're going to see that more and more. We've seen that, especially after COVID.
Oh, we've seen it this whole hour. We've seen it the whole hour.
Yes, the whole hour.
Eklund Mercy, we're out of time. You know, you've got a clock. Do you have a clock? You know we're out of time. Eklund Mercy, Nima Rahmani, Kirk Nurmi. Amazing as always.